So this is another opinion piece. Rumors of a continued proof of work version of Ethereum should be viewed with extreme caution, but it's fascinating is what they say here. So if you guys haven't been floating around crypto Twitter for the past week, there's been lots of talk of essentially a split, another split for Ethereum, for lack of a better term, where you would see essentially proof of work remain. So it would be called like ETHW, ETH POW, something along those lines, and you would have essentially still a running proof of work version of Ethereum. Now that's a little counter to what Vitalik Buterin said, which was, if you like proof of work, remain on Ethereum Classic. But that aside, let's get into this this opinion piece. Ethereum's long-awaited transition from a proof of work to a proof of stake-based consensus system is just over the horizon, and the anticipation has created a bullish narrative for the smart contract platform. That's bittersweet for one very significant group. After the merge, current Ethereum miners will be left with immense amounts of computer hardware that will be much, much less useful. But some miners are not going gently into the good night. On July 27th, a long-time Ethereum investor and miner named Chandler Guo tweeted ETH proof of work coming soon. A declaration in brief that Guo would lead his fellow miners to continue supporting the current proof of work based Ethereum chain after the system change known as the merge. There are some rational arguments for a continued ETH proof of work chain, and it would certainly be a fascinating experiment if it goes forward. But there are a lot more reasons to think the chain wouldn't be viable in the long term, in a lot of ways that an ETH proof of work continuation could be leveraged by disingenuous bad actors. To understand both the potential and the risk of a post-merge ETH POW chain, consider how the upcoming merge will work and what will be left behind. Very broadly, the historic state of Ethereum chain at the time of the merge, most crucial address balances will be transferred to the new proof of stake consensus environment. But the same state history will also still exist on the proof of work miners chugging away right up until the microsecond before the merge. Those miners could fairly easily continue accepting transactions and adding blocks to the copy of Ethereum chain using proof of work. It also means that they will still be rewarded by the pre-merge proof of work algorithm with tokens that look a lot like ETH, but exist only on a degraded proof of work chain. Now, another point that we have to bring up that is glaring, the elephant in the room, would be the difficulty bomb would have to get diffused as well because it's not diffused. So difficulty bomb would continue to go off. That is the entire point of the difficulty bomb, is to prevent miners from continuing to mine this proof of work chain. So unless, of course, Guo here has a plan to disable or diffuse the bomb, then it's kind of a moot point in my humble opinion. So that would have to be done. Just then maybe that's mentioned in this article though. Similarly, all ETH holders just before the merge will have keys for tokens on both chains. Using them will likely involve some complexity, technical work, or special tools. But many default applications like MetaMask will presumably remove integrations with the old chain to prevent user confusion. But as we all know, even with like Ethereum Classic, Binance Smart Chain, blah, 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 you can add in a custom entry for the network. So even if, MetaMask completely removed it as a default install, which it probably will, there will be some Medium blog post or some stupid YouTuber like Son of a Tech that will come out and give you guys the information on how to connect to the old proof of work chain. Those pesky YouTubers. Also important, only holders who self-custody are likely to retain control of their ETH proof of work tokens. It's likely that much custodial exchanges will not give users access to their tokens on the continued proof of work chain. However, a major, if often unspoken goal of Chandler Guo and his ETH proof of work initiative would be to generate enough interest in ETH POW that exchanges do list it and make it tradable as a token separate from ETH proper. While ETH proof of work would likely be tradable via decentralized exchanges sooner, mainstream centralized exchange listings would be key to maintaining broad market interest. At the crudest level, this is where the money is for ETH proof of work advocates. If they can get enough exchange listings, it will effectively guarantee that there is at least some market value for both the tokens they already own, and perhaps more important, the new ETH proof of work tokens they mine post-merge. The question I would have is, what makes this dissimilar from Ethereum Classic, other than, let's just consider this fact, that if it continued on a secondary network, you would have access to everything that was built onto ETH up to that point. So other than that, what really makes it different than just moving over to Ethereum Classic would be my question, because the devs aren't going to maintain all of the projects on ETH proof of work necessarily, just like they wouldn't maintain all of the projects on Ethereum Classic necessarily. So you still run into that same problem of all the development, all the dApps, everything built on Ethereum will continue on the post-merge proof of stake chain and not on the post-merge proof of work chain. So I think that presents a pretty big issue. And we go back into that whole like debate of like chicken before the egg problem. Of course, that's not going to do with the actual usefulness of ETH proof of work. Is there any reason for a proof of work version of Ethereum to continue to exist, other than to find a price for something that has lost most of its value overnight? What are the chances that there will be an actual user demand for ETH proof of work that lead to longer term stable value or appreciation? Well, I'll give you the answer, but nobody will like it. It comes into play when proof of stake is completely deemed, a security, along with, all of the other technical issues that go along with that too, including but not limited to, everything that's going on with MEV that Bitsby Trippin talked about and we're about to talk about right after this opinion piece. But there are DDoS vulnerabilities available. There could be, if ham-fisted and forced through, potential technical issues that take down the ETH chain. And what happens then? You do roll to the proof of work chain to continue development, right? That is a potential. There are some non-financial arguments for continuing the proof of work chain as ETH POW or whatever they ultimately decide to call it, because ETH proof of work frankly stinks. I think it'll be ETH W probably. Above all, rational or not, there will be some uncertainty about the stability of the new Ethereum chain after the merge. If something goes truly catastrophically bad with the merge, there is some chance users, apps, and even assets will migrate back to the proof of work chain. That's what I was saying. In this scenario, positions on the old chain could act as something akin to insurance. To be very clear, that chance is vanishingly small. There have been several Ethereum test merges at this point and they've gone well, but the chance isn't zero. They've gone relatively well. They haven't gone perfect, right? Longer term, there remains some uncertainties about proof of stake as sustainability security system for Ethereum. Most pointedly, there are going to be concerns that over time, proof of stake leads to centralization. Not over time, pretty much immediately, especially with the lockdown of withdrawals post-merge. Yeah. So that by rewarding those who are already big holders. And of course that's true. Governance manipulation is another perceived risk of proof of stake consensus mechanism. The longer term emergence of these or other flaws could lead players to migrate back to a proof of work version of Ethereum, which would raise the value of positions there. There are, however, big and more obvious reasons that ETH POW chain will have little substantive value. In fact, it will likely be such a confusing and broken landscape that it could even be described as having negative value. Above all, most of the assets and systems that people actually use on Ethereum would be effectively dead on the forked proof of work chain. Stablecoins denoted on the degraded chain won't be honored by entities like Circle, for instance. That in itself would be enough to render DeFi systems on ETH POW effectively unstable. And I completely agree with this. But there's an even bigger problem, especially for the period right after the merge. The decentralization price oracles that make DeFi platforms functional, in particular for trading programmable assets, would be broken. A second set of issues also confront the ETH POW concept. In order to incentivize the proof of stake transition, Ethereum's creators built in a time bomb, which we addressed at the beginning of this article. This so-called difficulty bomb is scheduled to effectively make the chain impossibly difficult to mine after the merge, slowing transactions down to a crawl. To pull off its plan, the ETH Proof of Work group would have to unify around yet another fork, this one to remove the difficulty bomb. This could prove truly challenging in the absence of the Ethereum Foundation and other leaders who often point the way on big Ethereum changes. The ETH Proof of Work group could also, in theory, work with stablecoin issuers and Oracle maintainers to bring working versions of those products back to ETH Proof of Work chain. This would all require significant financial and coding resources, though. The ETH POW advocates might well have the money to throw around, but talent is tougher. There is already a serious lack of skilled Ethereum developers, so recruiting devs to work on a decommissioned leftover might not be easy. And then that really brings up, in my opinion, brings up the question of why not Ethereum Classic at that point, right? You already have some development over there. And if we're talking financially, we have the ant pool investment, right? So you have big players already investing in Ethereum Classic. There's a final reason to question whether ETH Proof of Work would have a real value. There already is an alternative proof of work based version of Ethereum. It's called Ethereum Classic, and it emerged from the 2016 rollback of the Ethereum chain after the infamous DAO hack. In fact, ETC has experienced a major rally recently and has also seen rallies in lead up to previous Ethereum upgrades, supporting the idea that there is some perceivable value in a backup version of Ethereum. Yep, case in point, Ethereum Classic. Could have seen this coming in the article, huh? But despite that, Ethereum Classic has gained limited traction among users since it split from Ethereum. Even after ETC's recent rally, it only trades at about 10% of ETH's value. Given that, it's unclear why there would be any need for two proof-of-work versions of Ethereum. And that's the question I have, right? So it's basically ETH Classic versus ETH POW at this point. Strangest of all, one prominent supporter of ETH Classic, at least rhetorically, was Kevin Go, the man now spearheading the ETH POW plan. At the time, he had great hopes, declaring that Ethereum Classic will replace Ethereum Core. Maybe the second time's the charm. Given all the headwinds, I don't believe an ETH POW fork is likely to become a thriving or even truly viable ecosystem. But if it goes forward in even the most limited form, it will trigger a wave of truly bonkers speculative trading as people try to profit from the free tokens left behind by the fork. One simple and helpful frame for traders considering their positions is the question of value distribution between the two chains. Kevin Zhou at Galios Capital, for instance, has predicted that while 96% of Ethereum's value will stay with the new proof of stake chain, 4% might accrue to the new ETH POW chain. Beyond that, trying to make money from a hypothetical ETH proof of work trade would truly be a game for only the most technically skilled players. As a recent excellent BitMEX research piece explains, the transition would likely break nearly all the trading infrastructure that average traders are used to. BitMEX suggests that extreme measures up to the major undertaking of running your own entire Ethereum node, which we could do pretty easy, will be necessary to make an ETH proof of work play. For anyone not instantly intimidated by that idea, BitMEX also lays out some interesting tactical options. Personally, as a decidedly non-expert trader, my plan for a hypothetical ETH proof of work fork is extremely simple and beautifully lazy. First, I'll be moving all my Ether off exchanges and into local wallets to guarantee I hold the keys on both chains. Then I'll hang on to my ETH proof of work until a centralized exchange lists it. Then I'll dump most of it and buy myself a sandwich or a gold watch and be happy with whichever it is. As always, a big event also represents a big opportunity for scammers, and there are equally serious risks for novices on that front. Be aware that there should be very little reason for any ETH proof of work advocate or group to ask for money for pretty much anything. After all, if it was a good idea, shouldn't the proof of work fork come with a sustainable community and an organic demand for support to support further development? The BitMEX reports also contains what I think is the most honest assessment of ETH POW trade you'll read anywhere. Quote, Ethereum maxis should actually, somewhat perversely, want the ETH POW chain to survive, at least for a bit, so that they can dump ETH proof of work coins into the market and get more ETH or US dollar. That way they can make money from what they consider to be stupid ETH proof of work supporters before ETH proof of work dies a slow death over the next few years. Therefore, many people will try to sell their ETH proof of work as fast as they can, and the price may be weak. This may not be what's truly in ETH proof of work advocates' hearts. I don't know, but it will certainly be the attitude of many traders who join in. And we do know, obviously, within this bear market that the problem with miners is they are experiencing a ton of selling pressure. So to build up a whole other chain and hold on to those coins while still trying to pay the electric bill and whatever other expenses there are is quite unlikely in my humble opinion. Now, if we're talking about ETH Classic versus ETH W is what I'm going to start calling it, I would probably lean towards Ethereum Classic personally. And that is because, like I said, they already have some developers there, albeit small, right? The development hasn't been great, but there are already developers there. And in the case of a failover, another thing too that we have to take into consideration is ETH Classic is already listed on most major exchanges, albeit with high confirmation times due to the hacks that it experienced early on. Most likely due to outside effects of things that I probably shouldn't state, and tinfoil hat, right? But as far as the attacks are concerned, but it's important to note that all those listings are there. You have your Coinbase listings, your Binance listings, your Crypto.com listings. You have all the major listings for Ethereum Classic. You have some developers over already on Ethereum Classic. You have the capability of migrating, pretty much anything you want off of Ethereum to Ethereum Classic if new developers decided to move over. All of that is already built into place. So I don't see adding in a second chain to necessarily resolve anything here, or at this point it would be a third chain or a third fork of Ethereum. I don't see it being viable. I don't see the point in it. I don't know why the move wouldn't be Ethereum Classic, especially with the funding that is also coming into it from places like Antpool. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.